Hello, welcome to Wikifiends. I'm your host, Joe.
I'm David.
And we're the Wikifiends. We're going to be reading some Wikipedia articles and giving you our opinions on them. So Dave has some detailed list of articles for you. Would you like to take it away, Dave?
Yes. Tonight we're going to go over several war-related lists. And the first list is military doctrines. A military doctrine is a formal set of tactics and strategies used by a military. It is preceded or based on military science, theorizing and implemented according to strategy by the use of specific military tactics. So, the first one for tonight is absolute war. Are you familiar with this?
Is that just like all-out open conflict and not not just secret or small-scale operations?
Close. I mean, it's pretty much that, but it's like an ideological state as well.
Okay.
The concept of absolute war was a philosophical construct developed by the military theorist General Karl von Clausewitz. This concept was featured in the first half of the first chapter of his most famous book, On War. In it, Clausewitz explained that absolute war is a philosophical abstraction, a logical fantasy that is impossible in practice because it is not directed or constrained by political motives or concerns, nor limited by the practical constraints of time or space. He called it warfare constrained by these moderating real-world influences, real war.
Mm-hmm.
In his explanation of absolute war, Clausewitz defined war as an act of violence intended to compel our opponent to fulfill our will. However, war itself does not contain inherent moral or political aspects. These conditions, for instance, the laws of armed conflict, are placed on war by those who fight it, and exist because the intelligence of the civilized nations involved exercises greater influence on their methods of fighting war than does their instinctive hostility. Absolute war can be seen as an act of violence without compromise, in which states fight towards natural extremes. It is a war without the grafted political and moral moderations. In On War, Clausewitz explains what makes up absolute war, and blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a little bit like the guy in the island, like absolute nature, like a person born of absolute nature. It's kind of, you know what I mean? It's not like a real thing. It can't ever really exist.
Yeah, it's abstract.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So he breaks it down into three main points, the three reciprocal actions. The first is an utmost use of force. Clausewitz states that it follows that he who uses force unsparingly, without reference to bloodshed involved, must obtain a superiority if his adversary uses less vigor in the application of force. Therefore, war in its most natural manner would involve each state continually reciprocating each other's use of force, plus some, to maintain a superiority, until both were using violence to its utmost extent. This is the first reciprocal action, and it leads to the first extreme of war. 2. The aim is to disarm the enemy. Clausewitz stated that the purpose of war is to make the opponent comply with the will of the nation or state. However, an opponent will obviously not do that unless complying to that becomes the least oppressive of its available options. Therefore, in order to make the enemy comply with the will of the nation, a state must place its adversary in a position that is more oppressive than its compliance. Furthermore, that position cannot be temporary or appear to be temporary. This is because it will be more likely that the enemy will simply ride out the storm in the prospect of being in a better position at a later stage. Any change in this position would be a change for the worse, and in order to best achieve this position, a state must disarm its enemy, forcing it into a position from which it cannot resist. Furthermore, as war involves two or more hostile states, this principle applies to both, and so it becomes the second reciprocal action, whereby both try to impose such a position on the other. You with me so far?
Yeah, what's the third?
An utmost exertion of powers. Here, Clausewitz states that if a state wishes to defeat its enemy, it must annihilate them. According to Clausewitz, the use of power involves two factors. The first is the strength of available means, which may be measured somewhat by numbers, although not entirely. The second factor is the strength of the will, which cannot be specifically measured as it is intangible. Once a state has gained an approximation of the enemy's strength of resistance, it can review its own means and adjust them upwards accordingly in an effort to gain the advantage. As the enemy will also be doing this, it too becomes reciprocal. This is the third reciprocal action, creating a third push towards an extreme. So, the only other thing that really the article mentions, which is what I was confusing it with at first, is it's commonly confused with the concept of total war.
Okay, and that's what I was trying to describe?
I think so, yeah. Like, the recognition of total war since World War I has created a degree of confusion for many who fail to understand the differences between it and the concept of absolute war, often using the terms interchangeably and blaming Germany's conduct of total war on the writings of Prussian military theorist Karl von Clausewitz. In reality, however, Clausewitz never coined nor used the term total war, and absolute or ideal war is quite a different concept. Total war is essentially a war in which the home front, that is, a state's political system, society, and economy, is mobilized to a massive degree for the continuation and expansion of the war effort. It implies the subordination of politics, internal and external, to the goal of purely military victory. It is characterized by civilian infrastructure and civilians themselves becoming highly involved in the war as a part of the military's logistical support system. So,
all right, so like World War II would be total war, whereas, let's say, Iraq invasion would not be total war.
Right, like total war, right, it's like the whole country is mobilized. Like there's almost no such thing as a civilian anymore. Like everything's a part of the war effort.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Absolute war, on the other hand, is war that reaches its logical extremes when it is free from the moderating effects that are imposed on it by politics and society. So yeah, very different.
Well, So free. So would an example of that be sort of like if it was free from, let's say, Geneva Convention laws?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot to those, aren't there? Though, isn't that it gets into more kind of specific things about cruelty, though, doesn't it? Like,
yeah. But I mean, I would say that that would have. Let me phrase it this way: Would let's say getting rid of would let's say two countries that are belligerents to each other, would it be a step towards absolute war if they were to both disavow themselves of the Geneva Conventions, the laws of the Geneva Convention?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like the idea is an absolute. That's the point. It's kind of you go past.
Yeah, clearly that.
Yeah, you wouldn't even right.
Yeah, that wouldn't even be part of. I mean, that wouldn't. You couldn't just call it that because that's just a small segment. But you would say if it was on a scale, it seems like that would be a step towards absolute war. If I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, well, it would be considered right. Yeah, I would say. Well, I mean, I guess, I mean, if the closest thing, like, if two states wanted to wage absolute war, they would essentially have to disavow any political, religious goals other than war. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they'd kind of have, you know what I mean? They'd have to become kind of like ideological, perfectly ideological states. Yeah.
So let's say, as an example, let's put aside, or let's say the goal of, let's say, a goal of the Nazis was to create, sort of a land that united Germanic people,
right?
A land for Aryans,
right.
So that would even if they disavowed themselves of the rules of the Geneva Convention, that would still not be absolute war because the goal wasn't war in of itself.
Right. The absolute war can be seen as violence without compromise, fighting to your natural extreme without political or moral moderations. So it would be if the Nazis didn't care about the perfect Aryan state. Their goal was to fight.
Simply to destroy an enemy.
To annihilation. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't see how that could... I guess I'm understanding it more clearly now. I don't see how that could ever be a thing that could be... I know you said before that we said it's an abstract, it's an idea, but I don't see how that could ever be materialized.
I guess it's kind of a thing where it's like, this is like worst case scenario, like kind of a thing, like, that, like if we came across a state where the enemy, whose whole goal was to just fight, like, to never even win, like,
yeah, but but I would say that, a precondition of a war is that they're two states fighting each other.
Right.
So I don't see how you could separate politics from that when states by definition operate through politics.
That it's such kind of an alien concept that there's really no use. I mean, like...
Well, I mean, the state by nature is political. So I don't see how a state could be separated from that.
I mean, I guess it's... I mean, I think it's kind of like a thing where if we think about our morals or our political goals, okay, we don't want to impinge upon freedoms, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that, we have these virtues that we're trying to uplift, we're not trying to be in a state of total war. But what if the enemy is willing to compromise certain things to be in that state? They're going to have the advantage. I think it's kind of more, it's but like...
Wouldn't the enemy would be another state, right?
Well, but like maybe it's the idea that like, okay, like you have two states fighting. One is willing to use slavery and the other is not. And so one is closer to a state of absolute war because they are not letting political or moral moderations get in the way of their logistics.
Well, I don't think it would be, because that could be a framework of their state. That could be a framework of their, that could be a part of their politics.
Well, but it could be a part of one nation's politics to not. But one does not have...
And that still sounds politically motivated, though.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a moderation, though. Like a breakdown of individual rights would not... that's shedding.
Yeah, but I don't think...
moral moderation.
I don't think it has to be. It's still based on a political ideology. It's just coming at it from a different way.
I get what you mean, that it's kind of like no matter what, what is moral and what is political in a way is kind of subjective. So, well,
I'm saying any state by definition is political. So for a state to I don't see how a state could abandon its politics in favor of war for the sake of war.
Well, I guess, I mean, there's something about this. It seems like it's kind of like it's like a boogeyman. It's like, okay, like, we're not fighting a total, like, you know what I'm saying, like mindless killing tribe. Like, we're fighting these, like, our enemies have moral moderations. That's real war. Mm-hmm. But if, parts of them break off or shed aspects of it, how would we be prepared for that? Or mm-hmm. I guess it's kind of like, it just feels like it's, this is the absolute worst thing we could be up against. So we always got to be ready for this possibility, I guess. It's kind of like, it'll probably never be necessary, but this is the worst it could get.
Yeah, I don't imagine it could ever happen, though.
It doesn't seem like it. It's just, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's real world influences, real war is moderated by all this stuff.
Well, I mean, even hypothetically, it doesn't seem like a possible scenario.
It's a weird concept. Like, I have trouble visualizing it because it is. Yeah.
A state by definition is political. So if a state has the desire to engage in absolute war, wouldn't then that just be a reflection of an aim of that state?
Right, or it would cease to be a state. It would be a company.
I don't think it would.
A professional army.
I don't think it would cease to be a state. I think it could.
If you define a state as political and moral values, I mean.
Well, I would say. I mean, then you're trying to make a distinction between state and government. I would say state sort of being the framework, the underpinning of government.
Right.
It could still be a government, but its goal could be, I mean, if a government pushed its, let's say, country into engaging in absolute war, I don't think it could happen.
Right. No one would go
by definition of absolute war.
Right.
Because if it did, it would still be politically motivated.
Right, right.
So to me, it seems like it's an impossibility, not just an unlikely scenario.
Well, it is. It's like the whole population is gone, like, insane. Like,
what?
Well, it's kind of like, for it to even happen, like, it would, like, people would have to kind of cease being human beings, like, on, like, large amounts, like a whole nation.
But I'm not even saying that. I'm willing to admit that, let's say even that if that did happen, it would still be politically motivated.
Right.
So
But what about, like, what about if it was like two robot armies that they were just programmed to destroy the other? Like, that would be absolute war, right? Like, because there's no politics, there's no.
No, you might have me there.
Right, like skeletons versus robot war would be absolute war. There would be nothing stopping.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean that's sort of like then you get into the nature of what is a state. Would that even be a state?
Yeah, right.
But no, that's a fair.
It's impossible in practice. It's impossible. Yeah.
I don't think it's even possible in theory.
Well, I mean, it exists.
I don't think it does.
I just read you the article, man.
No, I acknowledge that this individual posits it exists, but I don't believe it does exist. Do you get that distinction?
I don't, because it's like I mean it can exist and be illogical. It can exist and be inconsistent. Like that's I think I kind of know what you're saying, but like you can come up with like a shitty idea, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to make sense.
I think the idea contained within itself negates it from being a legitimate idea.
Well, like, could you give me like a counter example? Like, I mean, what would be Like, what's another example of something like this? It's like Schrodinger's concept. You can't. When you mean it exists and it doesn't exist, like
I didn't say it does. It does exist and it doesn't exist. I said the notions put forth in the idea make it so that it can't possibly exist. A state cannot be apolitical.
So it's like a bird that's not a bird. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of another way to get
it has
my head around what you're saying.
It has nothing to do with it existing and not existing at the same time. It's solely a fact of what clause. What was the theorist's name?
The theorist, General Karl von Clausewitz.
All right. If he's saying for absolute war to exist, it would have to be a state that abandons all its principles, both moral and political, for the sake of war.
Yes.
I'm saying that a state, by definition, cannot abandon its politics. So therefore, it could never happen. Does that make sense?
I mean, I guess that's the thing. I mean, it's just it is like robot versus robot or something almost in a way.
And that's my point. Would that qualify as a state? And in a sense, would it even qualify as a war or just a fight?
Right. Well, I mean, it's if you take away political and moral moderations, it just turns into logistics, right? Like, it just turns into who has more. Like, it's just attrition.
It seems like if you take away the caveat about abandoning political or moral beliefs, then it just is solely about total war.
Right.
I'm willing to sort of
well, you understand it makes sense how it got confused.
No, I understand how it could be confusing, or how people could confuse one for the other. I'm saying though that what he posits could never exist.
Well, he says that too. He says it's impossible.
But I'm not saying it could never exist because, for practical reasons, I'm saying by definitions, by semantics, it couldn't exist.
I get what you mean.
Do you? Or you just want to move on?
I think it could exist.
All right. Well,
like
I
don't know. Probably not likely though. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying.
No,
though.
I don't think
I do get what you're saying.
I think any time a state is engaging in war, it's always political, and it could never not be political. Is what I'm saying.
I do get what you're saying. That I think if anything like this even came close to existing, it would probably, like, a lot of things would have to break down, like shit, like what it is for a state, what it is to be human, like all these things would kind of like fall apart.
I'm not saying,
which I guess is kind
I'm not saying that. I'm saying nothing could ever happen that could make what he's positing is absolute war to exist. Nothing. No, I'm not talking about a breakdown of what it means to be a human or societal relations. I'm saying by definition of the words involved, it couldn't exist.
Right.
Man, maybe you disagree with me. Maybe our listeners will also disagree with me. I'm saying that a state, by definition, is political. So no matter what beliefs it abandons, it will always have a political aim.
Mm-hmm. Or some ulterior, some
even
outside
if
influence.
Look, even if it has different political aims, even if its political aim is to purely exist or survive, that's a political aim in and of itself.
Right.
So it can never get away from that.
I know. I think this might be a tomato thing. I think I pretty much.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is a tomato.
I think that we kind of are. We're maybe I'm trying to act differently about it just for the sake of ego. I think we're pretty much saying the same thing.
I don't think we are saying the same thing. I really...
All right, well, our next topic. You want to get into this? I mean...
we could... if you want to move on, well, I think a better thing to say would be, let's agree to disagree instead of tomato, because we're not saying the same thing. But go on.
I mean, you're saying... Oh,
no.
Right.
No. I didn't mean to cut you off.
We're just going to go in circles. We're just going to go in circles with this. Like,
do you want the last line, and then you can go to your next topic?
No, you pretty much laid it out. All right, so
sorry, man.
Let's move on from this pattern of conflict and talk about my next topic: patterns of conflict.
Very good.
Is a presentation by Colonel John Boyd outlining his theories on modern combat and how the key to success was to upset the enemy's observation, orientation, decision, action, time cycle, or the OODA loop. So, observation, orientation, decision, action. So, it's a patterns develop the idea of a counter blitz or blitzkrieg in reverse, with numerous attacks followed by withdrawals to the rear. The aim was to confuse the enemy by presenting no apparent strategy, reveal the enemy's intentions through the strength of the response, and present a misleading picture of the defender's own actions in order to disrupt the attacker's future plan of action. Mm-hmm. Are you with me so far on this?
Yeah.
Kind of interesting, right? Like, I like it's like very psychological. It's kind of undermining expectation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not. It sounds pretty cool.
First presented in 1976, patterns grew enormously popular through the 1970s and was represented on many occasions, including a personal presentation to Dick Cheney in 1981. A personal presentation. Just show it to me. I love this. In 1980, a presentation to the U.S. Marine Corps led to the development of an entirely new doctrinal system. Boyd's ideas also became the basis for the air-land battle, the U.S. Army's European warfighting doctrine in 1982 to the late 1990s. Patterns has been widely regarded as one of the most influential works of warfighting theory of all time, and has been compared to the writings of Sun Tzu. Mm-hmm. Is that right? The Art of War?
Yeah.
Is that how you say that guy's name?
It's either Sun Tzu or Lao Tzu. I can't remember.
Yeah, Lao Tzu or Sun Tzu. Based on patterns and the work that followed, Boyd has been called America's greatest military theorist. Mm-hmm. So they kind of just get into his, lauding him and, kind of breaking down examples of it. But, I mean, you pretty much get the gist. Boyd considers examples of guerrilla warfare, which he illustrates having many of the general qualities as the blitzkrieg, in that the attacks appear random and uncoordinated. Since the defenders kept confused, overwhelming forces need to be employed in order to defend against these actions. So it's kind of, I mean, I don't want to get too just throwing shit out there, but it's like, I don't know, it's like theories of asymmetrical, and it's just confusing and mm-hmm. getting you to, it's like playing chicken, trying to get you to flinch kind of shit. Mm.
Does it have, like, any interesting examples?
So it's like, it's a presentation. So, it's kind of, he says the presentation include modern commanders in theory, which Boyd felt were too focused on winning the battle directly instead of shattering the enemy's forces before the battle even took place. Mm. Among early examples are Marathon, Lucretia, Abella, and Canaan. He turns to more modern battles, including the Mongol invasion of Kharizma and the extensive discussion of Napoleon's battles. So it's kind of like, it's like, I guess it seems to be like, if you have a good grasp of this OODA loop, it's not, it's kind of, you're not just going to go in there and hack at each other. It's like, you already know how you're going to break them.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's a very like Sun Tzu. I think it's Sun Tzu, a Sun Tzu thing. Like the fight is already won or lost before you step onto the field. I think
right.
So it's like all the stuff that's outside of it. I guess that's not exactly the same, but because I think that,
this.
A what?
No, go ahead.
I think Sun Tzu thing's more of a mental, like it might be a mental preparedness. But
right. Kind of more like a right. More like a state of
but it seems like putting that into practice. Maybe I don't know. That might not be a legitimate point, but you know.
Well, it's kind of maintaining your grasp on how it works as opposed to just kind of berserking. You know what I mean? Like you're fucked if you can't keep a cool head. You know what it reminds me of? This is so stupid. Like it's a great book. It's called The Dark Crusade. By who the fuck was that guy's name? It was like it was by this guy. He kind of made this character called Cain, and Cain was kind of like the thinking man's Conan. Did you ever hear this shit?
I feel like I've heard of Cain.
Yeah. What's this guy's name? Oh God. He was, he was kind of an author in that sword and sorcery time. Carl Edward Wagner, this guy.
Okay.
In the complete novels of Cain. And Cain was kind of like, he was like a barbarian, but he was also kind of like an evil wizard. He was kind of like urbane. And there was this one novel I remember reading as a kid. I really liked it. I actually reread it like maybe about a couple months ago. And the idea was you kind of have all these like medieval kingdoms, right? And they have cavalry and infantry. It's kind of like generic Dark Ages shit, you know what I mean? Like Crusades era.
Mm-hmm.
And this thief gets, possessed by a satanic, like foreign god. And he has all these, personal magical powers. But one of his things is kind of like charisma. So he raises this huge peasant army of just waves and waves and waves of men, right? And like they just sweep over some of the kingdoms and take it over. And there's this big scene where a smaller kingdom with a professional military is the first to kind of defeat this horde. And it is about like routing them, breaking, it in two, and killing people on the fringes. And like, a lot of use of kind of like breaking the horde kind of stuff. And it reminds me some of these concepts. It's like messing with ideas of expectation. Because I think like part of the thing was it's like they sent in infantry into the horde. The horde thought this was going to be an easy thing. And then they have the cavalry go right behind them and just break the whole horde in two.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of it makes me think of this cool head routing and fucking with your expectations.
All right, let me. What was the guy's name again? The guy who made the theory.
The theory is Colonel John Boyd.
What's the theory name again?
Patterns of conflict.
Patterns of conflict. So
Yes.
it doesn't seem to be like it's a new thing. It seems like he's just giving a name to something that may have or giving a name to something that existed beforehand. Is it?
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, because if he's citing ancient things, he's just sort of. It's not like it's his theory. It's not like his like. I don't know.
Well, here, how about this? He kind of, some of this seems like it says it's based on dogfighting, like air combat. Boyd was a U.S. Air Force colonel who developed the energy maneuverability theory of air combat. This was based on formulas that revealed a fighter craft's ability to maneuver, allowing direct comparison between different designs using simple metrics, blah, 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 blah. The EM theory was based on the idea of generating rapid transients, continual changes in position and maneuvering. The idea was for a fighter pilot to keep the enemy continually guessing his intentions, thereby delaying the decision-making process to the point that the enemy would be unable to predict the future position of his aircraft. To do this, a fighter craft would need to be able to quickly gain or lose energy, as well as having a high roll rate in order to generate out-of-plane maneuvers. So it's like faking out.
Yeah, well,
like you know what you're gonna do.
Yeah,
and you fake out. Right?
All the old fighter stuff, like the World War II era fighter stuff. I find that very interesting. It seems like he's a little bit later, but
right.
It can't just be all about faking. It has to also be about maneuvering yourself into a position to get a shot at the enemy.
I mean, in that particular, that thing is almost seems more of like, it's a tactic than a grand strategy. But like,
no, I
is
know.
Yeah. But it's about you wait. It's fucking with their orientation. They're going to observe you, and then it's too late.
Yeah, but eventually, you have to shoot them. You have to shoot down their plane.
Right.
So,
right. I get
so
the idea.
It can't solely be about like fainting. Like,
well, it's like you have to know where they're weakest. And you have to position yourself where you can hit them, where they're weakest, and you have to essentially obfuscate as much as possible up until that last second.
You have to get to where they're weak without making yourself weak.
Exactly. Right. Right.
Yeah. The fighter stuff is like, it's a lot more interesting than I would have originally thought. Because I did some research into it, a while back. For a project I was working on, and it's because you might think it's all about like who has the better plane, or who's an actual better better at flying in general. But it's a lot of little things that are that go into it, and a lot of it did have to do with sort of maneuvering yourself and maneuvering your enemy into where you were strong and they were weak. Be it at what speed you were going at, what altitude you were at, what sort of turn you could make at what speed and what altitude. So there was a lot of it. A lot of it was not just who had the better flying machine, which I found really interesting. But I guess that shouldn't be surprising.
No, it is. I don't think the whole thing is based on this, but this whole counter blitz thing, like the theory of the tactics that aims to upset the opposing commander's OODA loop, causing their actions to become ineffectual and that their own armored attack to falter. Key to the entire concept is rapid movement. The goal is to not think in terms of layers of defense as in traditional counter armor doctrine, but in terms of channels that the enemy will be forced into. Once channelized, any commander in the field will have the capability to launch flanking attacks at any point on his own initiative. Such attacks appear random to the enemy and would be considered uncoordinated under traditional planning, but would in fact all be carrying out the primary goal of the tactic to cause confusion.
All right, let me ask you this then. Do you think a good characterization of this would be he sort of looked at examples of things in the past that may or may not have been deliberate? Let's say were not entirely deliberate, but worked in the favor of one party, and then his theory was to try to get that, but sort of on purpose, to get that as a deliberate tactic.
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's kind of right. Like, it's, in this battle, all of a sudden, half of, I don't know, whatever broke off and started doing something that there's no way they could win. It just seemed totally logical. The enemy thought, like, they've lost control. Like, this is easy pickings. maybe they go after a weak, soft target, and then they get hit right in the ass and knock them down, kind of thing. And and those kind of things could have been, like not a pretend breakdown, like a real breakdown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah. I could see it's like a little bit of theater. It's like really just faking like you've gone nuts, like you don't know what you're doing.
Well, it sounds like chess, sort of.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking that too. It is kind of like, haha, I got your ass now. Oh fuck, my ass is
like
free.
when you think someone has left their queen open, but in fact it was a trap.
Yeah. Well, the second you let your guard down because you get overconfident or something, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that is a pretty interesting article. Boyd was his name? General Boyd?
John Boyd. Colonel John Boyd.
Boyd?
Yes. Boyd.
So not John Voight.
Not Voight. Boyd.
Yeah.
Now, like the OODA loop. Very interesting. There's a whole article on that by itself. I'll have to check that out another time. All right.
Let's keep those caissons rolling. That's so stupid. Sorry.
Okay. You ready for the next one?
Yeah.
The Cult of the Offensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a funny name. The Cult of the Offensive refers to a strategic military dilemma where leaders believe that offensive advantages are so great that a defending force would have no hope of repelling the attack. Consequently, all states chose to attack. It is most commonly used in context of explaining the causes of World War I and the subsequent heavy losses that occurred year after year on all sides during the fighting on the Western Front.
Mm-hmm.
The term has also been applied to those considering air power doctrine immediately prior to the opening of World War II, where it was believed the bomber will always get through, and the only way to end a bombing campaign was to bomb the enemy into submission. It is also used often to explain Israeli strategy during the 1960s and 70s, as demonstrated in the Six-Day War, in which Israeli forces attacked and routed much larger enemy forces in a lightning attack. So the military theory of it is under the cult of offensive. Military leaders believe the attacker will be victorious, or at least cause more casualties than they receive, regardless of circumstance, and so defense as a concept is almost completely discredited. This results in all strategies focusing on attack, and the only valid defensive strategy being to counterattack. So, it's interesting.
You gonna go?
Kind of like
a what?
Huh?
You gonna go run and get a creamsicle?
Oh, did that come through?
Yeah.
Yeah. The musical accompaniment tonight is by Mr. Frosty, Mr. Softy.
Jonathan Softy. All right. So the cult of the offensive.
Yeah. Do you want to take a quick break and wait for Mr. Softy to fuck off?
I can't hear it anymore.
Okay. Then let's just keep going.
I shouldn't have said anything. I apologize. So
no, I mean, it probably came through. But let's go. It's gone. Mr. Softy's gone.
Yeah, who gives a shit?
What do you think?
Let's get back to war.
So I guess it's the exact. These people do not believe the best offense is a good defense, I suppose.
Yeah, I always found that phrase kind of weird. That best offense is, and also the corollary, I guess, the best defense is a good offense. I've heard that as a jocular.
I've heard both of them, right? And like they're kind of fucking interchangeable. Like,
yeah.
They don't really, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you hear them in regards to, or you hear them in sort of media about sports. So like a like a TV show about a big game,
right? I mean, I can say in video games this tends to work. I mean, if you kill them first, they don't kill you.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. Like,
well, are you talking about like a shooter, or like do you think that holds in like a strategy, like a real-time strategy game?
I mean, my reference points are more like, like RPG roguelikes. So it is kind of like, it doesn't matter how you kill the rat, you just don't let him bite you and give you poison. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't think of a granted, I don't have a ton of experience with I mean, I played a little bit of StarCraft, a little bit of Age of Empires when I was younger.
Uh-huh.
And it seemed like a lot of that was just attacking.
Yeah, I don't see, like, this. It's probably context related. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It probably has a lot to do with the context. Like, I mean, I could see this making sense if it's like, I don't know, if it's like a gang and you're, I don't know, like a like a large police force. It's just, don't wait for them to do stuff. Just go raid their hideout. You know what I mean? Like, if you know where it is. I don't know. I have no fucking idea. It seems fucking foolhardy though, a little foolhardy, but it kind of makes sense though.
Well, it seems like, what I would like. I guess the question that I would have is, when is a good time? If it's not good to always attack, when is it good to defend?
Right.
I mean,
I guess subscribers to this believe there is no good time to defend. It's completely discredited. So
I mean, you have to defend some things, right? You have to defend sort of you'd have to defend like your I don't know, the facility that's producing your war machines, I would imagine. Like, there has to be something that you're willing to go on the defensive for, right?
I mean, but I guess the theory is, who's going to attack our vulnerable locations if they're dead, because we already killed them. Like, why even muster the resources?
Yeah, but I would say
to defend. Yeah,
but don't you think that there's a point, like, maybe that's good on the outset, but wouldn't you say eventually you would have to defend things?
I guess the only defense is that you have shit to attack at vulnerable locations, shit that's able to attack. Like, anything else is just stronger bunkers or whatever, or whatever. It's just not gonna be as effective as just shooting back.
All right, well, let's say World War II. Let's say the Manhattan Project, where they were making the atomic bomb. Don't you think strategically that would be something you would want to defend? If the scenario arose in which forces were moving into attack, don't you think that would be a thing worth abandoning? Let's say, assuming you want to, we're both assuming that fighting is the desired, is what's to win the war is what's desired, and let's say creating a super weapon like the atomic bomb.
Well, I guess it boils down to this. It boils down into, do we get the super secret, super well defended max security facility ready for our people to make our super weapon, or let's just, I don't give a fuck where they make it, just get that shit on a plane right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't care if they all get killed, we'll get new ones. Like, I can kind of understand the urgency, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but if it's not ready, if it's not finished.
Well, right. I guess the idea is it's you don't waste time on making cool castles. You make the cannon. You blow
I don't think that's a cool castle, though. I mean, we're talking about a super weapon.
Well, but you get what I'm saying, though. It's right. It's like, doesn't matter if they make it butt ass naked, in the middle of the street, just as long as they get it done quick.
Yeah, but let's say it's not done. Wouldn't it be worth defending until it is done?
I mean, if it's under attack, or if it's I guess it's always a potential thing.
I'm just saying there has to be examples where it's defending takes priority. Like let's say you've only got one unit. Let's say I don't fucking know the things.
Right.
What you've only got one unit, and you've got they're equidistant from 2 points. They're equidistant from your place that's creating a super weapon that the enemy is closing in on, and they're equidistant from a town that the enemy that's enemy controlled. Wouldn't you think it'd be valid to want to defend the super weapon from the attack? If that super weapon could then mean that you're much more likely to succeed in future attacks?
You know, I think it comes down to a priority urgency decision. And is it a higher priority to defend scientists, or is it a higher priority to attack the enemy? And it's, the answer is obvious. You know what I mean? Like, there'll be no scientists to protect if we don't keep attacking the enemy.
I don't think it is obvious. I'm very surprised you went that way. I thought it would be obvious that it'd be more beneficial to defend the scientists.
Well, it's a good thing we're not joint chiefs of staff.
Yeah, we're not agreeing at all on this show.
I don't know if I'm quite all on board with the call to the offensive. Like, it's a context related thing, and like, I know I get the example you're giving, but like,
I'm saying, don't you think there like I was following you when you said like it's a matter of priorities, but don't you think there could be an instance where defending something is of a higher priority than attacking something?
It's a tough one, because I would tend to say no, because it's stopping the cause of the attacks is going to do a lot more.
Yeah, but that's assuming that you're going to stop it in one fell swoop.
Right.
I mean, I would say maybe this is a good game example. Let's say you're playing Age of Empires, right? You've got several units out in the field, and you've got your townsfolk are sort of unguarded. There's no people there.
Right.
Would it be better to? I mean, that's the sort of thing. Like, would it be better to keep attacking, or to go further and further away from your town, attacking other things, while an invader comes to attack your town? If they attack your town, you can't produce any more war units. If they kill all your people, you can't produce any more buildings, and you can't produce they destroy your people, they destroy your town center, they destroy your barracks. Then you're just left with the people you've got out in the field, and if they die, there's no one to replace them. So it seems like
okay. Wait. How about this? How about this? So, like, let's say, let's break it. I'm kind of break out the Age of the Empires thing a little bit, but let's keep that thought. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say you've got this strategically valuable civilian location like that, right? Like they're your factory or something, and you've got non-combatants there, right, that are producers, mm-hmm. that are vital to the effort, right?
Yes.
Do you cover all of the civilians and factory in steel-plated metal armor and they look all like robots, or do you make a bunch of tanks? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, which is a more valuable defensive strategy?
Now, yeah, that's a good point. I would say, in general, it would probably be better to put your armor on the tanks, unless there was some very specific
or not
reason,
even or just make more tanks. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Make more tanks. I would say generally yes, unless there was a specific reason why it would be more worthwhile to fortify the town. And I'm just saying, there could be a scenario. To me, it seems like there would be scenarios in which it would be more important to do that. But maybe you're right. Maybe generally it would be better to just make more tanks.
Well, I mean, remember this about the cult of the offensive, is it's not necessarily saying you never defend, but the only valid defense is attacking. Counterattack.
All right. Maybe I misunderstood the thing. What would that even... I don't know. I guess then all your defenses must serve future attacking. Maybe that's a better way to phrase it. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, it's there's only attacking and counterattacking. Anything else is a waste of time under this theorem.
Mm-hmm. Do they give examples? This might be a long shot. Do they give examples of things that would be a waste of time to defend?
No.
No, I didn't.
I mean, they get into World War One. I mean, well, anything that's not me.
Yeah, but right. Wouldn't you think even in World War One they would have to have? They couldn't have all their units out in the field. They had to have some people defending behind the lines.
Well, do you want to hear a little? Like the German Schieffelin Plan is a notable example of the cult of the offensive, supported by offensively minded officers. It's funny, such as Alfred von Schlesinger and Helmut von Moltke the Younger. It was executed in the first month of the war, with some historians maintaining it was nearly victorious, though others claimed the plan never had any chance of success. A French counterattack on the outskirts of Paris in the Battle of the Marne and an unexpectedly speedy Russian mobilization and attacks ended the German offensive and resulted in years of trench warfare. It is not only Germany that followed the cult of the offensive. The French army, among others, were also strongly driven by this doctrine, where its supporters included Frederick Foch, Joseph Joffre, and, Louis de Grandmaison. Officers of that period were indoctrinated that the French army, returning unto its traditions, no longer knew any law other than the offensive. This is thought to be the military reason behind the French conscription law in July 1913, following the passage of a similar bill in Germany 3 months earlier. So, I mean, this is kind of we're going over, boy. This is that is funny because I mean that's the fucking horror of trench warfare, right? It's just constantly just like running into these fucking things completely unprepared. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It seems like it didn't work, right?
No, and you remember that whole thing, the famous World War I Christmas where they played poker and shit.
Yeah.
When they crossed the trench. Yeah. If anything, it kind of just it's just it's kind of it's so machismo, or it's weird, It seems like it's a very kind of outdated. Although I guess they say it was used as late as the 70s.
Maybe I was being a little too literal. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So you want to do one more military doctrine, and then
are we going to do a game?
Yes, I do have a game.
Is it okay if I present a game, or is it only your game?
Oh, you can do a game.
All right.
I'm always up for a game. You want to take a game break? Let me do this last one.
Yeah, do yours, then we'll do the game.
Let's do this last military doctrine, and then I'll close this topic. So, command by negation. Command by negation is a military command and control doctrine, a hybrid of command by direction and command by influence. It is commonly found in the United States Navy, particularly in independent commands at sea. The doctrine is based on the idea of allowing individual officers to show their initiative in executing actions freeing up their superiors to focus on the bigger picture. So this is the history of this concept. Most commonly found in the United States Navy, the doctrine evolved in the 1980s, although a variant known as Aufragestaken was used by the German armed forces in the Second World War. Traditionally, naval engagements have been conducted in the same way for 400 years. The task force commander would coordinate centrally. Improvised technology led to warfare moving faster, however, which necessitated a shift away from central control. A commander had to be able to focus on the wider picture and would not be able to effectively do that if they were also dictating the actions of every individual subordinate. Mm-hmm. Command by negation first came into being on individual ships, where it made sense. A captain who delegated authority and exercised command by negation could easily monitor his staff and communicate with them because it was a small environment. Within wider naval engagements, however, the officer in tactical command, the OTC, still maintained a rigid control structure because communication systems simply couldn't work efficiently enough to make loose and autonomous doctrines viable. This changed with improvements in the 1970s and 80s to networking communications and the amount of information available to an OTC. The introduction of AEW and C systems, SOSUS, and satellite feed data risked overwhelming the OTC, and so forces were forced to shift towards granting individual commanders more autonomy, something that improved communications made possible. Mm-hmm. This eventually resulted in the concept of a composite warfare commander, a CWC. So,
it seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, it's just there's too much. I can't waste my time telling you to tie your shoes. You know. Like,
yeah, I mean, it seems like that's not like, because if like let's say like a regular like an army thing, like a ground force. You wouldn't have a general in the field going around to each different squad telling each squad what to do. You would have,
right.
A general tell some, a major or something, and then a major would tell...
Move that column, to the west.
And then I guess you might trust a major to tell... I guess that... If you had all the time in the world and you were the highest general, you could instruct each member down the line what to do. But you don't have all the time, so you rely on your major to tell a captain or whatever the hell whatever's next, a sergeant. I don't think sergeants.
Well, yeah, like the general yells at the lieutenants yell at the majors yell at the sergeants yell at the grunts. It's just this chain of command shit, and everybody kind of has to operate autonomously for survival and superiority. I mean, it makes sense. It's kind of like it's not a pausable real-time strategy game. You can't hit pause and analyze it.
Well,
you have to rely on autonomous.
Let me just ask you before I look it up. Was your game about military rankings?
All right. I'll tell you what my game was. I was going to give you celebrities, and you have to guess which branch they were
Okay,
in.
That's pretty good. Because I wanted to look up rankings, but I didn't want to do it if that was your game.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. Because I can never remember what's what,
Right.
But, give it a whirl. Do the game.
Okay. All right. So, I'm going to give you some of these celebrity names, and you just got to guess. It's only going to be Army, Navy, or Air Force. So, no Marines, no Green Berets.
Why no Marines?
No curveballs. Huh?
Why no Marines?
I saw a bunch of guys in there. Some of these guys were Marines as well. I just wanted to keep it simple.
But Marines is one of the major branches.
No, I know. But I wanted to keep it like these three. No, I know. I'm not... No discounting to that branch.
Well, you said like...
I mean, I just did it.
You said like no Green Berets, but Green Berets are in the Army.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not getting that specific. It's just Army, or it's just land, sea, and air. I just wanted to keep it like that.
All right. I think you're doing a grave disservice to our our brave men.
Yeah, right.
You're a grave disservice to our brave Marines.
Well, I just had to do it to make it easy for me. So, what was Elvis Presley in? Which
he was
one?
in the Army.
Correct. All right. Bill Cosby.
Was he in the Air Force?
Wrong. Navy.
Oh, all right, that makes sense.
He was a seaman.
Mm-hmm.
Hugh Hefner.
I'm gonna guess Army.
Correct. Morgan Freeman.
Navy.
Air Force.
Oh, that's surprising.
Willie Nelson.
Navy.
Air Force. Humphrey Bogart.
Navy?
Correct.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, because
Mel Brooks.
The time the time Humphrey Bogart would have been in, they wouldn't have had the Air Force.
Is that right? I guess he is pretty fucking old.
Yeah, it was during World War II. It was the Air Force was a part of the Army. He's a U.S. Army Air Force. Well, he was pretty. I mean, he wasn't old when he was fairly young when he died, but you know,
he actually might be the oldest person on this when I'm looking at it. All right, Mel Brooks.
Army.
Correct. James Earl Jones.
Ooh, I'm gonna guess Navy.
Army. Do you want to guess what conflict he was in?
Was he in Korea?
Correct. Good.
Well, that's just going by his age.
Yeah. Well, you're right. That's what you should go by.
Too young for World War II, too old for Vietnam.
Right. J.D. Salinger.
World War... No. Oh, no. What branch? I'm going to guess the Army again.
Correct. Yeah, he was in Normandy. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge. And he was... Huh?
He was World War II.
He was World War II. He was in the Army, and he also was part of the force that liberated the concentration camp at Dachau. So he was at fucking Normandy during D-Day, Battle of the Bulge, a lot of big stuff. JD actually. So, Don Rickles.
Have you read his book?
Yeah, Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah, it's not very good.
Oh, I disagree. Another topic, Don Rickles. I'm more interested in what Don Rickles was.
I'm gonna guess Navy.
Correct.
Seems like a Navy man.
Montel Williams.
Air Force.
No, Navy. He was a Marine as well.
All right.
Paul Newman.
Navy.
Correct. Mr. T.
Army.
Correct. All right. I'm gonna do 3 more. All right. Johnny Cash.
Army.
Air Force. George Carlin.
Air Force.
Air Force. Correct. Jerry Garcia.
Oh God, I know. Army.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a real Grateful Dead fan.
Yeah, I don't think he liked it very much.
No, I think he got kicked out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Let me see some. What about Charlton Heston?
I would say Army.
Air Force.
Yeah.
And this is a weird one. Sidney Poitier.
Navy.
Army. He actually, when he was 16, he lied about his age. He was homeless at the time, so.
Yeah, it's kind of a rough position to be in.
So, you did pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah. All right. So, I've got a game for you. It's not really military themed, but I could do one that's military themed if you think that'd be better, but
oh, whatever.
All right. I'm going to stick with my original. I'm working from list of nicknames of United States presidents.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to give you a nickname. I'll give you 2 nicknames because a lot of times there's multiple, but you're gonna have to guess who it is.
Okay.
All right. I'll give you an easy one first. Bullshit Johnson.
Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah. Let's see here.
George Washington.
Tricky Dick.
Nixon.
Yeah. All right. Slick Willie.
Bill Clinton.
Yeah. All right. Here's 2 now. One is the hero of San Juan Hill, and the other is the Lion.
Andrew Jackson.
No. It's Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt, the San Juan Hill is his Rough Riders thing.
San Juan Hill, I think, is what fucked me up. All right, keep going.
All right. Here's 2. They're pretty good. One is Uncle Jumbo, and the other is his obstinacy because he vetoed more bills than the previous presidents combined.
Taft?
No, I would imagine it would throw you because of the Jumbo part. No, it's Grover Cleveland.
Oh, Grover.
Yeah.
No, actually, I never would have got that. I know who Grover Cleveland is, but I don't know any of his shit. Keep going.
All right. The Great Engineer.
Oh, that's a weird one.
I'll give you a hint. He had something pretty big named after him.
He wasn't in a wheelchair, was he?
You got to guess. I'm only giving you one hint.
I don't think it's. I feel like it might be FDR, but I don't think it is FDR though, and I don't know who it is. Who is it?
Something pretty big named after him.
What is it? What is it? The engineer?
Yeah.
He has no other nicknames, or what was the other one?
I'm only giving you that one.
Because the other, it's like the other one, like Honest Abe or some shit.
No, well, another one. The other one is Great Humanitarian and the Chief.
Fuck, I do not know. Ike?
No, it's another reason I feel like you would have gotten it is because of engineer Dam, Hoover Dam, Herbert Hoover.
Oh, fuck. I don't know why. I always forget fucking Herbert Hoover was a president. I always think of him as just like the guy in the FBI that wore the dress or whatever. Like,
that's 2 different people.
Yeah. All right, what's the next?
All right. You're not going to get this one, but it's pretty funny. The Human Iceberg.
Coolidge?
No. Oh, that's pretty good because of the keep cool with Coolidge thing. No, it's a Benjamin Harrison.
Oh, yeah, no way.
All right. I'll give you 2. One is the Tycoon, and the other is the Ancient One.
Fuck. That might be FDR because of that fucking cigarette. That cigarette holder.
Why?
Because it looked like a tycoon.
Oh, I see.
I don't think it is, though.
I'll give you a hint. It's not FDR.
It's not FDR. The tycoon. Fuck. Yeah, I'm kind of like... I've kind of run out of presidents that I know. Is it Taft?
I don't think... No, I don't think Tycoon would help, but the Ancient One, I think that's more helpful.
So, he's, like, old.
Well, I'll give you what it says. A nickname favored by White House insiders because of his ancient wisdom.
All right, wait. After World War II or before?
I can't give you so many hints. Just one guess.
All right, so George Bush.
No, it's Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, it's Abraham Lincoln. Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Here's one that you should know if you remember anything from like school. You know, like they would say this in school a lot. This isn't a weird one. Old Kinderhook.
Fuck. I do not know. I imagine that's an older one though.
It
Old
is.
Kinderhook.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like John Adams or some shit like that.
I'll give you an even bigger hint. He's the 8th president.
Yeah, I don't know. I do have no idea.
It's Martin Van Buren.
Oh, Van Buren.
Yeah. See what I have here. The American Fabius.
The American Fabius?
Mm-hmm. And here's a big hint for his Fabian military strategy. So that means he was in the military. He was a high-ranking military man.
Ulysses?
No, it's I'll give you one other nickname that gives it away. The father of his country.
Oh yeah, George.
Yeah. All right.
His nickname was George Washington.
All right. Old Hickory.
Oh, it's fucking Lincoln, right?
No.
Old Hickory?
Yeah.
Who is that?
It's Andrew Jackson.
Oh, Andrew Jackson. All right.
We already did
Fuck.
Lincoln. All right. Let me find if there's any more good ones. There's two: the phrase maker and the schoolmaster. And he wore glasses.
That might be FDR. Is that FDR?
No, it's Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, Woodrow. Oh, that's right. Oh, fuck. I forgot. I get him confused with Coolidge. Which one was the big fucking racist one? Wasn't that fucking...
that was Woodrow.
That was Woodrow?
Yeah, that was Woodrow Wilson. A really disgusting
He had, like, eugenics
man.
policy. Yeah.
What?
Didn't he, he was into, like, eugenics and shit?
Yeah, he was really gross. And then at one point he had a stroke and his wife served as president, but, like, not officially.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, she did
Not the vice president.
No, he had a stroke, but they kept it secret, and then his wife did all the work.
She wasn't elected for that.
No. All right, here's the last one, and you're probably not going to get it. The Napoleon of Protection, and protection means high tariffs.
Yeah, I have no idea. Is it the one who got shot, other than Lincoln?
That's a very good assumption.
What the fuck was his name? God damn it!
I'll give you an even bigger hint. His birthday is the same as my birthday.
Oh fuck! I don't know.
No, there's no way you would know that.
Who is it?
It's William McKinley.
Was he the one who got shot?
I probably shouldn't have said when my birthday was.
By the way, my social security number is also.
Yeah, don't tell them that. They don't know the year though, so.
They don't have shit on you.
Yeah. All right. Well, you didn't do
very
very
bad
well
on that one.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
It's not your area, but admittedly, it's not an easy game. Here's I'll give you some. The newer ones are easier, so I'll give you some of those.
Oh, okay.
Jack.
Fuck, I don't know.
Jack?
Who the fuck is that?
John F. Kennedy.
Oh, John F. Kennedy.
All right, Mr. Nice Guy.
I have no idea.
Gerald Ford.
Oh, Gerald Ford.
Yeah. Poppy.
That's George Bush, right?
Yeah, George H.W. Bush.
Right. I know W.
Yeah, W is one of them, and Bush Jr. for George W. Bush.
Does Obama really have one? Like, I don't even think.
He doesn't have any listed. I guess, I guess people say, oh, bummer.
That's true. First black president? That's not really a nickname, though.
Well, that was Bill Clinton's nickname.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. I did that. They totally did call him that. That's so funny. I totally forgot about that.
Can you guess who the great communicator was?
That's FDR, right?
No, it's Ronald Reagan.
Really?
Yeah, you're really bad at this one. How about this one? This is an easy one. The Peanut Farmer.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, okay. That was a gimme. All right, well, I think that wraps it up for my game.
It's interesting to hear those, though.
Yeah, they're pretty funny. I like the older ones seemed a lot better than the more modern ones.
Yeah, they seem a lot more like kind of insulting.
They had one for Chester A. Arthur, the Walrus.
What was Taft's nicknames?
Taft was Big Chief and Big Lub.
I would have gotten that.
No, you wouldn't have. I guess you would have because you kept saying Taft. Yeah. And they only had one for FDR, and it was FDR.
I didn't realize that was a nickname.
Well, it's not his real name.
I guess not.
No.
All right. You ready for... I got two more broad topics.
Oh, shit. We're still going?
Yeah.
We're
not huge, though.
All right.
All right. So I'm going to go through some classic mercenary units and formations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk a little bit about private defense agencies and historical examples of those. These aren't like huge articles. There isn't much left.
Okay.
So some examples of early private defense agencies include in ancient Europe, ancient city-states in Greece and Rome depended on liturgy, contributions made by rich citizens for specific purposes for defense. A liturgy might be used, example, for the fund the manning of a warship, although a certain amount was assessed by magistrates. Some citizens paid more than required in order to obtain popularity, influence, and sympathy. During the Second Punic War, Quintus Maxus Conquistador used his personal resources to pay for the release of some Roman prisoners. When the son of Scorpio Africanus, who at the time was acting as de facto commander-in-chief, was captured, he came up with the ransom himself. Blah, 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 blah. Julius Caesar made his fortune by vanquishing pirates in the Mediterranean, by conquering Gaul, and the emergence of the modern state caused the members of the upper classes to be disarmed. That's not really a good example. Let me see. In the American Old West, in the period of 1830 to 1990,
1890
was similar to 1830 to 1900 is similar to anarcho-capitalism in that private agencies provided the necessary basis for an orderly society in which property was protected and conflicts were resolved. And the common popular perception that the Old West was chaotic with little respect for property rights is incorrect. Since squatters had no claim to Western lands under federal law, extra-legal organizations formed to fill the void. Benson explains, the land clubs and claim associations each adopted their own written contract for setting out laws that provided the means for defending and protecting property rights in the land. They established procedures for registration of claims as well as for the protection of those claims against outsiders and the adjudication of internal disputes that arose. The reciprocal arrangements for protection would be maintained only if a member complied with the association's rules and its court's rulings. Anyone who refused would be ostracized. Boycott by a land club meant that an individual had no protection against aggression other than what he could provide himself. According to Anderson, defining anarcho-capitalist meant minimal government with property rights developed from the bottom up. The western frontier was anarcho-capitalistic. People on the frontier invented institutions that fit resource constraints they faced. So, there's just some classic examples of how these things worked.
So is it sort of like a underpinning of anarcho-capitalism?
Yes, actually, this entire article of PDA, a private defense agency, is from a series on libertarianism. Actually,
yeah, it's very interesting. Have you I have a comic version of the probability brooch. That it's sort of a I never read the book itself, but it does have a lot of interesting stuff about that private defense.
Listen to this. I skipped this one, but I'm kind of looking at this. This was in between American Old West and ancient Europe. They cite medieval Iceland.
Yes.
Medieval Icelandic institutions have several peculiar and interesting characteristics. They might have almost been invented by a mad economist to test the strengths in which a market system could supplant government in its most fundamental functions. While not directly labeling it anarcho-capitalist, he argues that the Icelandic Commonwealth between 930 and 1262 had some features of an anarcho-capitalist society. While there was a single legal system, enforcement of the law was entirely private and highly capitalist, and so provides some evidence on how such a society would function. Even where the Icelandic legal system recognized an essentially public offense, it dealt with it by giving some individual, in some cases chosen by a lot from those affected, the right to pursue the case and collect the resulting fine, thus fitting it into an essentially private system. It's very odd.
Yeah, I am very interested in a lot of... I know there's been I've read things about sort of Pennsylvania at a point also was regarded as like anarcho-capitalist origins of Pennsylvania. But yes, the private defense is a big part of I shouldn't say a big part of anarcho-capitalism, but it's definitely a discussion point, within that branch of thought.
I mean, it's kind of a weird thing. I mean, in that case where it's kind of all it's like the private defense agency is not. It's not like an agency. It's kind of like, it's divvied up among those affected. Like, that's kind of odd. What am I thinking?
That's not an agency itself. I mean, that still has sort of a government, but yeah, it's sort of like because this is like a subject of interest to me, like in a lot of like the a lot of the discussions are sort of how it would work, and sort of. No, what?
I have ethical questions about some of this, but I want to save it till the end because I got yeah. I am curious.
What's your ethical? Is it an ethical question to me or just to? Or is it?
No, it's kind of like my wrap up thing, but it is related to kind of how these things function. And let me get through two other quick examples.
All right.
Have you heard of the Black Company?
The Black Company,
or Black Troops, German Schwarzhofen?
I don't know. I'll just say no.
They were a unit of Franconian farmers and knights that fought on the side of the peasants during the Peasants' Revolt in the 1520s during the Protestant Reformation in Germany. Mm-hmm. The original German name of the Black Company was Schwarzerhofen. The term black pointed to the ideological distance of the company from the large peasant army at the time, which called itself Hillerhofen, Hill meaning light-colored, and the word Hofen was how peasants called their armies. Mm. It was never used again for an army, possibly because the word Hofen means heap in Germany.
Mm. No, I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, it's the fact that it was they were hired guns for a peasants' revolt. It's kind of interesting. Mm. They're formed in 1525 in Rothenburg out of a local home guard farmers, maybe 600 men, in a company of mercenary knights. The leader of the Black Company, at least nominally, was nobleman Florian Geyer. Geyer managed to shape the Black Company into something like a company of real soldiers instead of just an armored mob. Some of the knights were probably his vassals. That's an odd one. Mm. And the other kind of, there's a couple in this, but this is the other one that caught my interest, is the Victual Brothers, or a loosely organized guild of privateers who later turned to piracy. They affected maritime trade during the 14th century in both the North and Baltic Seas. During the 14th century, Queen Margaret of Denmark was battling Albert of Scandinavia. Albert had been king of Sweden since 1364 and the Duke of Mecklenburg since 1383. The Vidalian Brotherhood were hired in 1392 by the Dukes of Mecklenburg to fight against Denmark after Queen Margaret had imprisoned Albert and his son Eric in order to subdue the Kingdom of Sweden. While Queen Margaret's forces were besieging Stockholm, the blockade runners who came to be known as the Victual Brotherhood engaged at war in sea and shipped provisions to keep the city supplied. The name Victual Brothers is derived from the Latin word victulia, meaning provisions, and refers to their first mission was to supply the besieged city. They were organized as a brotherhood or guild. Their main naval enemy in 1392 was a powerful Hanseatic town of Lübeck, which supported Denmark in the war. Apart from Lübeck, the Hanseatic League initially supported the Victual Brothers, and most of the Hanseatic towns had no desire for a victory in Denmark, with its strategic location for control of the seaways. For several years, the Victual Brothers were a strong power in the Baltic Sea. They had safe harbors in the cities of Rostock, Ribnitz, Wismar, and Stratslund. They soon turned to open piracy and coastal plunder. In 1393, they sacked the town of Bergen for the first time, and in 1394, they conquered Malamo. They were essentially privateers that just went full pirate against the Hanseatic League. So it's kind of interesting. Mm. Now, I guess my thing is that maybe the Victual Brothers are a better example of this than the Black Company, but do you think that there's kind of something inherently immoral with a private defense agency? Without conflict, they have no use, so it's in their financial interest to stoke the fires of war. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I don't think there is anything.
The Victual Brothers.
What?
In the Victual Brothers, they were kind of just a navy without a mission, so they just became pirates. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they weren't operating as a. Yeah, I would say no. There's nothing inherently immoral or unethical about a private defense
professional
agency.
Army.
Well, I think a private defense agency is distinct from a professional army.
Right. Like a mercenary force and like a defense agency. Mm-hmm. Like one's more offensive and one's more defensive. It's in the name, private defense agency. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure there could be examples where something could call itself a defense agency, but it could actually be offensive.
Well, okay. If there's nothing inherently immoral about a private defense agency, is there anything inherently immoral about a mercenary company?
I would say I'd need to look more about word-wise about mercenary. I would say anything that initiates violence is inherently immoral. So if
right.
that's its aim, then yes. If it's a purely defensive hired gun group, then no. But I would say
right.
it could, in all likelihood, it would be, immoral.
I mean, it's a weird thing because it's like I tend to agree. I mean, in like the black company's case, they seem pretty gray, but like this idea that if in times of war you're a great hero, but it's kind of like the classic kind of like Marvel Comics thing. We made you to fight a war, but there's no war, so now you're just a villain. You don't know anything else. And I mean, it's kind of fucking stupid, but there is some kind of.
I think there's a big difference between hiring people to fight a war, and then hiring people to act as defense agents.
Right.
So, I mean, was there anything else you wanted to... Was that your ethical concern?
Yeah, I wanted to get your kind of opinion about the ethics of private military organizations.
Well, I think private military is distinct from defense agency. I would say a big problem with private militaries is that sort of, while some may view it as a quote unquote libertarian or anarcho-capitalist organization, they make their money from acting in conflicts that were usually started by acting in conflicts that are between other different warring factions, oftentimes involving a state or a government. So they make their money off of the immorality of other right. entities, and that's not saying that they themselves are not immoral. I mean, they very well could be, but it's sort of a thing like you don't have that option to do that unless there's the the sort of the initiator, in the initiator of
right.
the violence in the first place. So let's say Blackwater. Blackwater was like
right.
I think a lot of people thought of Blackwater as like this is why you need a government. You can only have government military. You can't have private militaries because they're only in it for the profit. but they only
military-industrial complex.
Well, that's a military-industrial
right.
conference is an entirely different thing. But
right.
I mean, they can't operate without without some other country or some other government starting a war somewhere and then getting contracts off of that war, off of the
right.
conditions created. They can't get money unless they get contracts to do military work, unless there's already been the impetus for that to be needed. So they're sort of making money off of the violence of others.
Right.
But they're not,
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, like.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about it. Like, it's kind of like these bullets are just going to get dusty, like it's like, you got like soldiers that are like getting older, it's like these things, if we don't use them, it's wasted resources, you know what I mean?
I'll put it better this way. Blackwater couldn't go in and clean up Iraq, right? If the U.S. military didn't attack Iraq in the first place. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's not within Blackwater's interest to start that war themselves in the first place. They're taking advantage over another entity starting a war. They're getting because no one's gonna pay them. No one's gonna pay them to invade another country. Like no business is gonna pay them to invade Iraq. But if the government invades Iraq off of taxpayer dollars, then they can get money.
Right.
They can get taxpayer dollars from the government to go clean up.
Well, the Hawks are financial allies in that sense. Like, Hawks provide them work. So it's in their interest to support the aims of Hawks, and like that alone, it's financializing.
Yeah. So
politics.
So it's
like,
I mean that in itself is like an immoral thing, because you're
right.
If your business model is based on a government starting a war, then that's that's not a moral business. But
killing is my business. Business is good, right?
And I think that's a lot different from a purely private defense agency. Because a private defense agency, they don't. How it would work, ideally, is that you get paid to not. It's in your interest to not have to fight.
Well, I mean, but if people can defend themselves well enough, or armies or police forces work well enough, that's not good for a PDA.
Well, it would only work if there were no armies or police forces, if it was entirely private, or if
right.
I mean, that's sort of like what's happened in Detroit, where a lot of sort of private security agencies are taking up the slack.
Like gated
not even gated communities, just like regular communities that are regular houses that are paying to have their house looked after.
Are there like salary town watches in Detroit now? I didn't even realize.
Well, they look like police. They have the vehicles. They have a uniform that's like a security guard. It's like a security guard uniform. And they'll drive around or they'll respond to things. But I mean, it's because Detroit went broke. The government went broke, and they don't have money to pay police. Like like emergency response times are very, very high.
But isn't like the view of like a lot of those like it's like Rent-A-Cops, right? Like isn't like the view like pretty negative? Like they're quick to be violent. They're quick to make shitty decisions.
I'd say Rent-A-Cop.
Like,
I'd say Rent-A-Cop is the pejorative, but I would say people might have that might have that sort of thing if you talked about them, if you brought up like Rent-A-Cops. But I would say people in general are much more likely to complain about right now about abusive police officers than they are about an abusive security guard, because you never really hear about a security guard shooting a kid in the back. But what?
Zimmerman. George
he
Zimmerman.
was a security guard and he didn't shoot a kid in the back.
Wasn't he like involved with like a neighborhood watch type thing though? Wasn't he? I don't think he was a Rent-A-Cop.
Yeah, he was. He was in a neighborhood watch, but he shot a kid that was on top of him, slamming his head into the ground.
Right. But I thought that's the thing. Like, I mean, he wasn't a cop, but he kind of. I guess
he was just the guy that lived in the neighborhood.
But I mean,
that was overzealous.
Yeah.
But people, I mean, people complain all the time about cops being overly, being aggressive unnecessarily to oftentimes minority people.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of the same. It's very similar, like, because I mean that's the whole thing with Rent-A-Cops is they follow black people around in stores. They do but it's kind of the same shit they say about cops too. But it's like it's like you're not even a real cop, though it's kind of a thing like that. Well, anyway, let's move on to the last topic.
All right,
it's real quick. You want to go through a couple? All right, so the last one is abandoned military projects of the Soviet Union. So it's a nice, fun one. You ready for some of these? Only got 4 of them.
All right.
These are pretty quick.
Let's get through them.
Okay, so Object 279. Object 279 was a Soviet experimental heavy tank developed at the end of 1959. This special purpose tank was intended to fight on cross-country terrain, inaccessible to conventional tanks, acting as a heavy breakthrough tank, and if necessary, even withstanding the shockwave of a nuclear explosion. It was planned as the tank of the Supreme Command Reserve. It was developed at the Kiro plant in Leningrad by a group headed by the engineer A.L. Trovianovo. The work on the tank started in 1957, ended in 1959. So, I guess the most interesting thing is its maximum armor thickness of 269 millimeters was covered by a thin epileptic shield protecting it against APDS and shaped charge ammunition, and prevented it from overturning by the shock wave in case of a nuclear explosion. It comprised of a large cast irregular shaped structures of variable thickness and slope. The all-cast front part of the hull was rounded in shape with thin armor panels against heat projectiles, which ran around the edges of the front and sides of the hull. The hull were also cast in similar protective armor panels. So if you look at it, it looks like almost looks like a hat. It's kind of like it's flared. It's very odd looking. But I find the thing that it can take a nuclear bomb like quite ridiculous.
When was this from?
Developed at the end of 1959. It's a heavy tank. So, all right. So my next abandoned Soviet Union project here's some real James Bond shit. The Fractional Orbital Bombardment System, the FOBS, was a Soviet ICBM program in the 1960s that after launch would go into low Earth orbit and would then deorbit for an attack. It had no range limit, and the orbital flight path would not reveal the target location. This would allow a path to North America over the South Pole, hitting targets from the south, which is the opposite direction from which NORAD early warning systems are oriented. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 banned nuclear weapons in Earth orbit. It did not ban the launch systems, so the Soviet Union proceeded to test their FOBS a bet without placing nuclear warheads in orbit. The Soviets developed 3 FOBS missiles, with only 1 entering service. So, very scary.
Yeah, anything with nuclear war is not pleasant to think about.
Well, the whole orbital bombardment thing too. It's like literally, it's like alien, like almost like vicious. We don't even have to be in the same planet, dude. We're gonna kill you from the North Pole, or South Pole. It's crazy. All right, so here's a sad one. The anti-tank dog. Dog mines. Dogs taught to carry explosives to tanks, armored vehicles, and other military targets. They were originally intensively trained by the Soviet and Russians in 1930 and 1996. Jesus. To be used in 1941 to 1942 against German tanks in World War II. While the original dog training routine was to leave the bomb and retreat so that the bomb could be detonated by the timer, this routine failed and was replaced by an impact detonation procedure which killed the dog in the process. The U.S. military trained anti-tank dogs in 1943 for use against fortifications but never deployed them. Dogs strapped with explosives were unsuccessfully used by Iraqi insurgents in the 2000s. That's crazy. I didn't even know that. So, that's a pretty spooky one.
Yeah. And it's sort of like the
rats, or...
Yeah. Or like I guess dolphins they use as like detection things, but...
Right.
Anything using a militarized animal is very... I guess like horse is not like... People are pretty okay with that.
Yeah, I think we may have mentioned
with the
this.
history of that.
Wasn't there that Russian general that, like, the guy training the dog said, "Oh, it's so wrong we're doing this. We can't kill these dogs." And the general said, "Well, do you want to do it?" And he's like, "Well, I guess I'll train the dogs." So,
yeah. Horrible place.
Oh yeah, they talk about with the Iraqis, donkeys were used as they were more reliable as well. And they could be equipped with sacks without looking suspicious.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right, here's the last one. Here's a fun one. The Soviet laser pistol was a prototype energy weapon designed for cosmonauts. The weapon was magazine-fed and used a pyrotechnic flashbulb technology to protect its beam. Another example was the laser revolver. These weapons were meant to disable optical sensors on enemy spacecraft. So they were really... they were ready.
I know that in the U.S., laser or like projected energy weapons are not regulated.
So watch out.
So I know there are some that are sort of like prototypal that you can buy, and there are people that make them on like YouTube. So if you're looking for the new, I guess thing of the weapon of the future, you can get an energy weapon unhindered.
Shit, I don't mean to keep going with this, but did you ever hear this TP-82? This is so weird. This was a required triple-barreled Soviet gun.
The space shotgun that has the machete in it.
Yeah, required for cosmonauts to carry when they landed in the Siberian wilderness. It's so ridiculous. Yeah,
I believe it was triple-barreled. Two 2 were shotgun and 1 was rifle round.
So strange.
Yeah, those things are pretty cool. You can't get them here, though.
It could be used for hunting, to defend against predators, and for visible and audible distress signals.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something. Well, they probably gave. It's probably not even that strange. It's such like a James Bondy commando-y fucking item, though. It's interesting.
No, they're pretty cool looking.
I like the idea, though, that it's just that this laser pistol was designed for use on enemy spacecraft, so they were not ready to do space war. This was very strange too. I was looking at the Russian Federation or whatever their space force, their space air force symbol. It looks exactly the fucking same as the Star Trek Next Generation thing that they click. You know what I'm saying, on their teat. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Oh, it's weird. If you are familiar with the Picard show, it looks exactly like those little things. It's funny.
Well, maybe.
Probably. All right, that's all I got. Good episode.
All right, I think I may have went off a little bit too much and alienated some people, but
whatever.
I guess we'll just have to. All right. Well, I guess it was a good show, Dave. So
good show.
All right. I just want to remind people to check out my post-apocalyptic tarot deck, Omega Land, available on Amazon. And how about you?
Stay tuned for my projects.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I've been Joe.
I'm David.
We're the Wikifiends, and have a good night.
Good night.
If you love fast-paced battle card games and high fantasy, you may love David's Stay Wars Backstab. Romp with your friends through castles and dungeons. But watch your back. You can't trust anybody. Backstab is published by US Games, now available on Amazon. Google Backstab card game today.